Shalom Yasharala, Shalom, Brakath Yahawah, Brakath Yawashi, Brakath Yahawah, Brakath Yawashi, Brakath Yahawah, Brakath Yawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, who teach one rule well, who taught me this truth. Peace and salutation to the Akim, the fellow laborers, the hopeful elect, pushing this truth. I risk it on lines to the four corners of the earth. To the Akwith listening, listen and learning, Shalom. It's your brother Shema from the Pillars of Benjamin camp, here with another lesson. And through the spirit and power of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yawashi, the title of this lesson, War Report, right? War Report, right? These nations are getting ready, right? And this article came out on Daily Mail, came out today, October 18th, 2021, the year of looking for and hastening the coming of our Lord. And the title of this lesson, We Will Lose the New Cold War with Communist China Within a Decade. Stark warning to the U.S. after Chinese launches hypersonic missile that orbits the Earth at 3,800 miles per hour. But Beijing claims it's just a routine test for the peaceful, right? Subtle words, right? Crafty words. For the peaceful use of space. Right? And the Most High is putting the spirit on these nations. All these other nations, all these heathen nations. The Most High is putting the spirit on them to get roused up and get ready for war, right? And Cold War is just a political, a geopolitical disagreement. Let's look it up. Cold War. Cold War. The Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension between the U.S. and the Soviet Union and their respective allies, right? And that took place from 1947 to December 1989. But this time period that we're in right now is a new Cold War, right? So tension between the superpowers, so to speak, right? China test launched a hypersonic nuclear weapon back in August that is designed to dodge missile defenses. Weapon was carried into orbit on a rocket before circling Earth and crashing down on a target at speeds of up to 3,800 miles per hour. Though it missed by up to 24 miles, sources familiar with the test said. Analysts caught off guard by launch, which shows China's missile tech is much more advanced than thought, right? Their technology is much more advanced than thought, right? Complacent Babylonians, Isaiah 47, verse 7, and it reads, and thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, right? This is proud America. You know, they think they can be untouched, right? They think they shall be a lady forever, the pinnacle, the benchmark of society. So that thou didst not, Salak. Let's read that again. And thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, right? What things? The results of your actions, right? So that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, heart being mine, neither didst remember the latter end of it, right? The end of their actions, they can't fathom it, they can't forecast it, they can't see it. Therefore, verse 8, therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, right? America, right? The land of milk and honey, right? The land of excess. Everything is excess and pleasures and feeding the flesh, feeding pleasures, feeding all in excess amounts. That's America the Great. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, heart being mine, I am and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, Neither shall I know the loss of children, right? And this is the mind state of America the Great, Babylon the Great. You know, I am and none sitteth beside me. You know, patriotic, proud, right? Dwelling carelessly, things of excess, excess food, excess trinkets, 4,000 square foot homes that two people live in. This is America the Great. Verse 9. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection. Salak. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. Right? So America the Great, Babylon the Great is going to be judged, man. Right? For their sorceries, their witchcraft, their enchantments, right? And how do they cast forth these spells? Their media, their music, their television, television, right? Right? Their whoredoms, right? Their false gods, their idols, right? So the Most High is going to judge this place, man, and He's going to use these other nations to do it. Doesn't it say in Isaiah 54, Khan? Isaiah 54 verse 16, and it reads, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire." Right, and these are their engineers, man. They're nuclear physicists. They're engineers, right? That's the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, right? That's how they create their weapons, right? In the ancient world, a smith used a hammer and fire, and used to bend metal and create his instruments for his work, right? And that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, right? That these instruments are these intercontinental ballistic missiles, man. And I have created the waster. I have created the waster to destroy. And what is the waster? These missiles, right? And these other nations, they're rising up, right? But Moab think they got next, but they don't. Second Ezra 6 verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world, right? These Edomites, Esau, Edom, Idumea, the ruling class elites, these banking families, right? This is the end of their kingdom. This is the end of their kingdom. We're in that time. And Jacob, right? Israel being a people before a place, beginning with the elect under Yawashi. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, right? That's the next kingdom, man. The kingdom of Israel, established on earth as it is in heaven, under Yahawashi. So there's no next after this, man. Beijing played down the threat, saying launch was a routine test of a spacecraft for the peaceful, there's that word again, use of space. NATO said it needed to look at China's throwing, I'm sure that means growing. NATO said it needed to look at China's growing threat, along with its traditional focus on Russia, right? And these other nations, under the leadership of Russia, because Russia's going to be a pivotal point. Russia's going to lead the charge when these ICBMs get launched and let go. America will lose a new Cold War arms race with China within a decade unless it takes a tougher stance with Beijing. A Republican congressman has warned after the Chinese tested what is thought to be a new hypersonic nuclear-capable missile. The missile is designed to travel in low orbit to dodge missile detection and defense systems, allowing China to strike virtually anywhere on the planet with little or no warning. Right? The Smith, right? Right? The waster to destroy. That's what the Most High is putting His spirit on these engineers to create these weapons, man. While China was known to be working on the technology, right? These engineers working on these weapons, man, their technology, The test took analysts by surprise and indicated Beijing's missile program is more advanced than previously thought. We have no idea how they did this, one said. Right, and that's America the Great, Babylon the Great, living Isaiah 47, the scripture opened with. I sit alone, right? I am and none else beside me, right? Thou that art given to pleasures, that's America the Great, right? I shall not sit as a widow. They believe they're not going to sit as a widow. Nothing can touch them. Neither shall I know the loss of children. That this is what they believe in their hearts, that nobody could touch them, man. But the Most High has something. The Most High has something planned, right? Which is ICBM intercontinental ballistic missiles, man. Jeremiah 50, verse 9. And it reads, For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, right? That's going to be led by Russia. From the north country, Russia, Gog and Magog. So all his allies along with Russia, right? China being one of them. And they shall set themselves in array against her, right? Battle formation against America. From thence shall she be taken, right? They're going to strike. They're going to strike with their ICBMs from their home countries, man. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain, right? The Most High is going to guide these missiles. The spirit of Yawashi is going to make these missiles not miss. And Chaldea shall be a spoil, right? America. All that spoilers shall be satisfied, saith Yahawah, right? America is going to be totally annihilated with these ICBMs, in tandem with the laser beams from the chariots, what the world inwardly calls UFOs. Yahawashi and the host of angels. Verse 11, because ye were glad, because you rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage, right? America. Esau, Edom, the destroyers of mine heritage. Whose heritage? Yahweh. Didn't the northern and southern kingdom go through cargo slavery, smallpox, yokes of iron, reservations? Right? Drug epidemics. Right? Because ye are grown fat as the heifer at grass and bellow as bulls, right? America the Great, Babylon the Great. It grew fat. Your mother shall be sore confounded, right? Your mother. Who's the mother of America the Great? Babylon the Great. Great Britain, which is birthed from Rome, right? America the Great is Rome 2.0. She that bear you shall be ashamed, right? These are the nations, right? Great Britain, NATO and the EU, Great Britain, right? She that bear you shall be ashamed. She's going to be ashamed. The hindermost, right? The end of the earth, the hindermost, that's America, of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert, right? And what's going to cause that? Intercontinental ballistic missiles. Because of the wrath of Yahawah, Bahasham Yawashi, it shall not be inhabited, right? Never inhabited again, but shall be wholly desolate, right? Destroyed, waste. Everyone that goeth by Babylon, right? America, shall be astonished and hiss at her, Salak, and hiss at all her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, right? These other nations. All ye that bend the bow, right? Those that possess military ICBM technology, right? Shoot at her, spare no arrows. Shoot what? Those ICBMs. For she hath sinned against Yahawah Bahasham Yawashi, right? It's written, right? Joel chapter 3, verse 9, and it reads, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, right? These heathen nations. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men, Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up, right? So these are the nations you see preparing for war, developing and tweaking their technology, developing and tweaking their ICBMs, right? Wake up the mighty men, right? They're mobilizing their militaries, setting them up, right? The mighty men being the military. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, right? Your plowshares into swords. Plowshares is farming tools. Pruning hooks is tree pruners. So these countries that are traditionally known for agriculture, farming, rice paddies, right? They're getting ready for war, man. Let the weak say I'm strong, right? These nations have been historically known as weaker nations. They're now saying they're strong. They're broadcasting their might. They're flexing their muscles. Right? Look what it said here. We have no idea how they did this, one said. Yeah, that's the weak saying they're strong. Mike Gallagher, a member of the Armed Services Committee, blasted the Biden administration for complacency and said America needs to aggressively rethink its relations with China after security sources reported that Beijing launched a rocket that carried a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile into space in August. However, Beijing played down the launch's threat today, claiming it was a routine test of a new civilian spacecraft. Yeah, that's what they're gonna say, right? This thing's about to get real. How a fractional orbital bombardment system would evade U.S. missile defenses, right? And this is just a map. Fractional orbital bombardment system, which can circle Earth in low orbit before descending to strike. It evades early warning radars, right? So it's gonna strike America from the south. This capability, right? And it flies lower than the traditional trajectory of an ICBM, right? And it evades the missile defenses based in Alaska, right? A report from the Financial Times, which cited 5 unnamed intelligence sources, said the Chinese military launched the Long March rocket in August, carrying a hypersonic glide vehicle into low orbit. It circled the globe before descending toward its target, which it missed by about 24 miles. The system will be able to overcome U.S. anti-ballistic missile defense systems that are based in Alaska and set up to shoot down projectiles coming over the North Pole, right? So it will evade America the Great's first line of defense over there in Alaska. The Chinese system will be able to strike the U.S. from the south, right? These nations are beating their plowshares into swords. Right? And America the Great's going to do something to tick off these other nations, to tick off NATO, right? And ultimately get the whole world going lay crosshairs on America the Great. NATO and the EU, right? And then Russia and its allies are going to have America the Great in its crosshairs. Revelation 17 verse 16, and it reads, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast," right? The beast, NATO and the EU. "These shall hate the whore." Who's the whore? America the Great. "And shall make her desolate," right? So these NATO and the EU nations are going to hate the whore, hate the US, "and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." How's that going to happen? How is she going to be burnt with fire? ICBMs. Second Ezra 16 verse 13. For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow, right? The Mosai Yawashi, his right hand. The Mosai Yawashi is putting his spirit on these nations, right? That bendeth the bow, that's their silos. His arrows, that's their ICBMs, that he shooteth are sharp, and shall not miss when they begin to be shot into the ends of the world, right? The ends of the world. America the Great. right? The Most High is going to put the spirit on these silos to launch these ICBMs, and they're not going to miss. The Most High won't allow them to miss. No amount of technology, no amount of defense system is gonna save America the Great, Babylon the Great, from the destruction. That destroying wind. No amount of technology is going to save it. It's written. The Most High Yawashi has a controversy, man. Has a beef, so to speak, with America the Great, Babylon the Great. Analysts believe that the rocket was carrying a hypersonic glide vehicle of the kind that China has showed off before in military parades, which was released into low Earth orbit, circling the globe at speeds up to Mach 5, or 5 times the speed of sound. Right? The Smith. Let's close out with that, man. The Most High has created these engineers to create these weapons. Let's close out. Isaiah 54 verse 16, and it reads, "Behold, I have created a smith that bloweth the coals in the fire," right? These engineers, these physicists, these scientists, "and that bringeth forth the instrument for his work," right? The ICBMs. "And I have created the waster to destroy," the ICBMs, that lake of fire. Right? The Most High is not playing. Right? But I pray you're edified. I don't want Rawchaa. Stay prayed, I pray without ceasing. Kwame Asherala. Wa Abad. Baba.